getting to be that time in the challenge season where we're getting down to the fine-tuning, the brass tacks. And we here at You Killed It, the challenge about the podcast, we're ready for it. We are ready to see what the final challenge looks like. But first, let's do some introductions. I'm John Shidley Hill.
And as always, my name is Sheldon Alexander.
And I already said it, but this is You Killed It, the podcast about the challenge. We got lots, and by lots I mean two people, pointing something out to us or asking a question. And that is, on last week's episode of You Killed It, we were both complaining that there was no sort of marker, sign, placard, you'd probably have a technical term, explaining what happened with D. And we made some points about how it'd be good for people who are not living and breathing social media like you and I do, and might not be up to date on what's happening with D. And also, it'd be a good warning to other people that are on reality TV shows to be, respectful of people. So I just want to give a shout out to Autumn Knight, who reached out to me last night. She is a longtime listener, first-time messenger. And she sent me a screen cap, and apparently they've had that in the United States, that sort of screen, for 3 weeks. You and I, both, we talked about this before we started recording. Last night's episode of The Challenge was definitely the first time in Canada that they'd shown it.
Yeah, that was definitely the first time that I'd seen it, for sure.
I also want to say something that Autumn and her husband do that's really cool, and I haven't heard of this, is they both listen to You Killed It, but they listen to it separately, and then they get together to talk about and discuss what you and I talk about. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah.
So shout out to Autumn and her husband. That's really cool. And thank you for everyone who reached out about the points we were making about Sheldon, help me out. What is the technical term for the...
I don't know.
It's not a cryon.
I guess a slate, maybe?
A slate. Thank you.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll go with that.
See, you can tell who works in TV and who does not on this podcast.
It could also just be a graphic.
Oh, graphic. That's a good word. We were hoping for a graphic. It was not on MTV Canada for the first 2 episodes of this whole D situation, but yes, it was on last night's episode, which I was glad for.
Yeah.
Because as I said last week, I think it was necessary.
I think it's just a little explanation, right? There had to be some explanation in terms of what happened to D, because she's not mentioned at all. And it really is interesting as I watch this episode, because I'm still kind of thinking the way my production brain works is kind of I wonder how much has been cut out or how much they had to change. And all I kept thinking about was D would have been so annoying in this episode, because she definitely would have been on Melissa's side, and she was so much against Bayleigh, right? If we go back to her and Bayleigh getting into it during the challenge, 2 episodes ago?
Yeah.
Her and Bayleigh definitely have beef. So with Bayleigh getting that upset, you can definitely see a window where D would have been right up in there talking shit about Bayleigh as well. And I wonder how much they had to either change or edit out, or maybe even beef up the Nany side of it just to just for more oomph, let's say.
It definitely felt beefed up. Unbent Flo asks us a question. He says, curious to hear your thoughts on the collaterally damaged challengers. Kyle has little screen time because Melissa gets a pregnancy edit. I noticed she never was shown drinking. Rogan is almost as much of a ghost as D. Long-term impacts for them? I don't know that... I still felt like Kyle was in the episode, and I'll point it out when it comes up. But Melissa was definitely drinking.
Yeah.
We saw her, I guess they didn't show her take a shot, but they didn't really show anyone literally putting the drink to their mouth. But we showed her having a toast.
Yeah.
And in fairness to her, at this point, she didn't know she was pregnant.
No.
She was in the first trimester. She didn't know.
And I think, too, that, at the end of the day, I'm sure they probably had like some more extreme shots of them getting drunk or something like that they probably had to take out. And you get it and you understand it. It's just a tough situation. Were you mad about not seeing a lot more Rogan? I was okay with it. I mean, no big deal. And mostly because more Rogan normally means more D. So I get it and I understand it. So if you're Rogan and let's say you had, hey, who knows what really happened? Like maybe Rogan and D rekindled their showmance. And we'll never know. And I'm okay with that.
One point I was watching and I was like, I wonder... first of all, I wondered what was happening between Dee and Rogan, because like she could not have handled it well that he like signed off on her being thrown in.
Yeah.
But I also wondered his opinion on like everything that's happening right now, because like he all season wanted out of this relationship with Dee, right? And like in a weird way, at least it's been erased. You know, like at least,
no, for sure.
And like he certainly has a good reason for a clean break now, right?
Yeah,
like he definitely can cut her loose.
No, totally.
So, my question, of course, is, you know, did he know about her beliefs?
Yeah,
right, because like Big T made it clear that like it wasn't a secret that maybe D had some racist beliefs, so I wonder if Rogan had picked up on them and what his thoughts were. But that's pure speculation, so who's to say?
Yeah. No, I mean, at the end of the day, I was just like, whatever. No D. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
Not worried. It was just funny, because there were certain points where I was like, oh, D would have been all up in there trying to troll Bayleigh. We would have gotten at least 3 or 4 confessionals of her throwing shade. And I'm kind of glad we didn't get that. So that's cool.
Oh yeah, she would be all the way up in that. Like she would not be able to resist.
I do have a question for you though.
Love it. Let's hear it.
After I read that, right, just that basically says, you know, they will air the season as planned and D will not appear in the reunion. I was like, what does that mean? They will air the season as planned. Does that mean they didn't go back and edit stuff out? But clearly they did, because she wasn't even in this episode. But it makes me think, does that mean she wins? I'm like, nah, she must just lose. There must be a purge and she's out, and that's what it is. But at the end of the day, so many questions. So many questions.
She also might just lose in the final. Like, I know she won last season, but as I've said ad nauseum, she won because of Jordan and CT. I don't know that in an individual competition she's really a threat. Like, certainly there's better, right? Like, there's more competitive female challengers left on the show that, to me, it would be favorites to win. We're not even clear if it's, like, one winner between both genders or if they're having like winners by gender. We don't know yet, but I mean, you got to assume Jenny's gonna win over D
for sure. Yeah, I would assume that for sure. But this episode clearly was slanted towards one source of drama, and that is Kaycee, Nany, and Bayleigh. I don't know what you call this. It's not a love triangle, a challenge triangle, a reality TV triangle, a friendship circle. I don't know what you call this.
It's a strange dynamic.
Yes.
And like we're gonna have to let it play out, but when it builds to its crescendo, I have lots of thoughts.
Oh, lots of thoughts.
And lots of questions.
For sure. So first off, Bayleigh without Swaggy, we knew that she was gonna struggle, right? She doesn't know what to do. And I found it funny because how does she not know what to do when this is the exact same thing that happened to her on Big Brother? Like, literally, this is the exact same thing that happened. They were in the house together. They were in their relationship. They always hung out with each other. Then he got voted off, and then she was left not knowing what to do without Swaggy. It's like, you've been here before, right? You should have a playbook on this, but shouldn't she be used to it? No? Am I wrong here?
She should be used to it. And also, like, I think that's just like a way you want to be in any relationship. Is you don't want, like, not even in a challenge house, but like in real life, you don't want to like be living and dying on the presence of your partner.
True.
Like, you got to be able to do life without, like, you can't, like, you need some, be doing your own thing and be a strong independent person. And I also have to bring up Stat Guy Greg, who is co-host of the Cheap Heat podcast with Peter Rosenberg, which is a wrestling podcast.
Okay.
He tweeted last night, and I hadn't even picked up on this, but it was so good. He tweeted, Bayleigh's game plan was Swaggy. Like, because at one point she said, like, Swaggy's gone. He was my game plan. What kind of game plan is that, Sheldon? Like, what, like, first of all, I'm not even saying that to run down Swaggy as a competitor, but, like, this is totally the, like, classic, like, writing on a chalkboard. Like, step 1, Swaggy. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, win challenge. Like,
so I think that, and I could be wrong here, this is my assumption, I think what she means is, you know, you think of the challenge as like a more physical competition, and she thinks that Swaggy is a great athlete. So in her mind, her role is just to help Swaggy win. That's what she means in terms of her game plan is Swaggy. Her game plan was just to help Swaggy win. It wasn't so much focused on herself as much as it was, let's try to help him win because I think he has a better chance in the final to actually win because he's a better athlete than she is.
Which, I mean, first of all, my impression is that Bayleigh is a better athlete than Swaggy. Second of all, she knows Fessy, right? And knows that Fessy's going to be on the show.
Yeah.
All due respect to Swaggy, but
yeah,
how can you be like, Swaggy's got this handled, here's Fessy? Like, what?
Yeah, I didn't say it was a good game plan. I was just saying I think that's what her mindset might be, and I mean, yeah, I don't know. Clearly, though, she wasn't. I want to give Bayleigh a lot of credit at certain points in this episode because I feel like you could tell she was trying to control her emotions a lot. And, you know, especially from the beginning where, because you see how the chips are going to lay out, right? From the beginning, you see Melissa and Nany and Bayleigh all don't have skulls. Nany is talking about how if she doesn't get a chance to get a skull, she's going to flip out. Which is funny because then they freak out on Bayleigh for freaking out because she didn't get a chance to get a skull. See the irony? Yeah. There's a lot of points here where I'm like, people say things, but then when the same thing applies to someone else, they don't really see it in the same light. I find that interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
I've got more thoughts on that, but I'm going to save it for a little bit later on in the pod. But, like, you are right. Like, I'm on no one's side in this one. How about that? In this love triangle, this situation.
No, that's cool. Cool.
But I do have to point out that, so they're going around the house talking again, as you said, lack of red skulls for certain competitors. And Josh, once again, is talking about how he needs to get in there, how he needs... Like, yes, Josh, you do, but then every time you've been given the opportunity, you, like, back off of it. Just admit that you're scared. Like, I would respect you more, Josh, if you're like, yeah, I'm terrified.
I'm so over Josh, it's not even funny. Like, it's just, at this point, it's like, dude, just stop. Just stop. That's all it is. Just stop. Every time he opens his mouth, I'm just like, whatever, man. Next scene, Josh.
I did want to say, I found it funny that when they were, like, spitting game, they were in, it seemed like, the kitchen area. Josh and Melissa seemed cool. Like, they were sitting beside each other. They were talking about their games.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, you know, how weird the dynamic is in the house. You do just come back to the bunker, and you either got to settle your shit or just be mad about it. And sometimes it might just be easier to just pour a bowl of cornflakes and have breakfast.
That's true.
Not mad at that.
We did cut to Nelson, Fessy, and Corey having their own little ceremony of Corey joining the Red Skull gang.
Corey had a great episode of just one-liners.
Corey had an amazing episode.
Confessionals. Yeah.
It's funny. My like power rankings of the Young Bucks is definitely like Corey, Fessy, then a big space, and Nelson. Like, arguably,
what about Hunter?
Like,
where's Hunter?
Sorry, Hunter and maybe Devin, if you count him as a Young Buck.
Okay.
Still, are having better seasons than Nelson.
Okay.
For the Young Bucks.
Fair enough.
But this conversation was so bro-y. Like, the way they spoke to each other, I was just like, oh my god, I'm getting dumber listening to this. And both Corey and Nelson were doing the hand rubbing thing.
Yeah. I loved it.
Which drives me nuts.
Oh, I loved it. It was so funny. I love the way that he's like, I guess we could take Swaggy's name off here. And then he goes to give it to Fessy. He's like, that's your man's.
See, that was funny.
I loved it. And, they started laughing. And part of the Red Skull gang. Hey, I like that name. Is that replacing the Team Young Buck? Is Team Young Buck replaced from the Red Skull gang? I don't know. Is that a new crew?
Maybe the Red Skull gang is like a subset of Team Young Buck. Like, maybe it's like the NWO Wolfpack when they reformed the NWO, or like the Elite within the Bullet Club.
I don't know who that is. Who's the Elite and who's the Bullet Club? I don't know who that is.
The Bullet Club, long story short, is a bad guy wrestling stable in New Japan.
Wow. Hold on. Was there any chance that I would have known that? I thought you were going to say like some new wrestling dudes on Raw or something. I don't know.
No. Lord, I'll say this right now. LT is like, yeah, Bullet Club. Like, there's someone that's hyped that I mentioned the Bullet Club.
I'm going to go out on a limb and I'm going to say I don't even think LT can help you out on this one, man. Just saying.
We'll see. So. We'll see what the mentions are like. LT, let us know. Do you ride with the Bullet Club or not?
We'll see. So the rest of the house is trying to help Bayleigh get over it, telling her that she did the right thing. I thought that was a nice, move by the rest of the house. Bananas fully in the thick of just stirring the pot this whole entire episode.
But stirring the pot, but finish your thought, and I want to say something about Bananas.
He was just in the mix. You know what I mean? There were points where he was blatantly stirring the pot, and there were points where he's just around, but like instigating the conversation in one way or the next. He was in the mix, and
you and I are. Sorry, go ahead, man.
No, it's okay.
I'm just excited,
and he was
just excited
there
to talk Bananas.
I thought it was cool that they're trying to tell her that it's fine. It's okay. You made the right move. The right move was to put him in. He just lost. Like, that's not on you, and that's okay. And I agree with that. And I thought it was cool for the rest of the house to kind of tell her that, because I'll let you go. Because the one thing I was going to say was there's so much talk about numbers and alliances, and I don't even really see that as a thing at this point of the game.
No.
Like, numbers and alliances don't even matter at this point. It's like you're just trying to make sure you have a skull and then get into the final. Like, what do alliances have to do with anything at this point?
And, we see it when it comes to, the nominees. You don't, the tribunals don't even have a choice of who they get to nominate at this stage.
Yeah.
The only question is someone on the tribunal going to put themselves in? Mm-hmm. Yes or no? That's all that's left.
For sure.
Right? But I wanted to say of that conversation, first of all, Melissa, very classy pajamas. I wanted to give her a shout out for her classy PJ game.
Okay.
I also, for maybe the first time in years, in maybe a decade, I understand why people in the house like Johnny Bananas. Like, you and I often say that in confessional, he clearly has written rhymes. Mm-hmm. He comes up with what he's going to say well in advance. Mm-hmm. He knows how to hit his mark, and he knows, when they're in a competition with TJ, he knows the one-liner to throw at TJ sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Have the banter at the appropriate time. But I felt like we saw him being genuine in this episode, and actually I can see, like I said, I can see why people like him. Even people who don't know him relatively well, like Bayleigh. Like, I can see why Bayleigh would open up with him a little bit, as we saw in the bar scene.
No, I'll give Bananas a lot of credit. I think that he was really being... This whole season, like, I feel like he's come off a lot more likable so far this season, and even in parts where he was going at D or they were butting heads, I would side with Bananas. Like, I think he's come off really well this season, for whatever reason, and, I mean, there's even people that he's beefed with in the past, and maybe the fact that there's...
Like Wes.
Yeah, Wes.
And Corey.
Right? Like, they're not that, you know, they're not butting heads this season, and even if they're not on the same side of the house, they're still finding a way to get along. Also, too, there's not the other people like, you know, Paulie or Kara or, you know, like those very strong personalities that would be going at Bananas openly. In this instance, I guess it would be Corey, and Corey's hasn't been taking that stance so far this season. Or Wes, same thing. So it's allowed Bananas to kind of play a fatherly or brotherly type role. He seems to have that relationship in the house with Melissa and Jenny. You know what I mean? Where he's like a good friend, always joking around with them. Even Big T when she was still on the show, you know? So, yeah, it's a different Bananas we're getting, and I'm cool with that. I do... So, go on.
I was going to segue.
Nope.
Go ahead. I was going to say, speaking of getting along, Nani and Casey... They're getting along well. The sexual tension is thick with 2 C's.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Some might even say tick, but that's a story for another day. There's a certain segment of the podcast that is laughing right now. There's certain segments like, what the hell are you talking about? Let's just move on.
So they show all sorts of scenes of them, like, sort of play fighting. But like in sort of like a fun, sexy way.
Oh yeah.
Having beers or perhaps some White Claws together, and sort of like by themselves. Like, we're at the stage of the season where they've got a big complex that was like designed for like 30 people, and they're down to like 12 people. So I think it's a lot easier to get some alone time with your boo.
For sure. Also, too, I think one of the tricks that you got to employ when watching the challenge, when people are talking and having conversations, to look at their eyes. You can always tell what point of the night it is in terms of how many drinks might have been had at certain points. And
they were a little wavy, a little glassy.
Yeah. And, you know, there's a lot of, you know, little fun kissing, cuddling, snuggling. And the thing that I love the most, like, I just said it, but Corey again popped up with the confessional as they're doing the montage of Kaycee and Nany going back and forth, and Corey pops up with his confessional, and he just starts it off with the listen. And anytime someone comes up with the energy just like to interject into something with the listen, you know they're about to spill the tea, they're about to come with some juice. And I just thought it was so funny because he just starts off and he dives into, there's a lot of rumors about Kaycee and Nany hooking up. And Kaycee, I know you got a girlfriend at home, but I know a player when I see a player. And Kaycee is all the makings of a player. Do you agree with Corey?
First of all, that was my line of the episode.
Oh.
Second of all.
Wow. Okay.
Second of all, of anyone in the house who's going to know, it would be Corey.
Yeah, fair.
Right? As a retired player.
For sure.
Third.
Okay.
I agree.
Oh.
I agree with Corey, and, like, hear me out on this. Mm-hmm. I think there's 2 kinds of players.
Ooh. Okay.
In life. Not just on the challenge, but in life.
Where is this going?
Is like the purposeful one.
Okay.
Like where they're showing up at a club, they're looking for a good evening, if you know what I mean.
They're proactive, one might say.
They're proactive. And then I think that there's the players that fall into it where they don't realize they're doing it, and then like maybe with the benefit of hindsight over years, they'll be like, oh, I see. And, like, I think that Kaycee falls into the latter group. I think Kaycee's a decent person. I think she's a nice person. You can hear her in her confessionals coming up with excuses. You can hear her when she's talking to Nany when drunk, making excuses. And like she's excited by having some fun with Nany. She's excited by Nany's company.
Interesting.
And so I think that like I don't think Kaycee's mentality is like, oh, like it's been like 6 weeks, I'm alone, I'm gonna go get some. I think that she's like talking herself into justifying it. And so like I agree with Corey, but I think there's two different kinds of players. What do you think? Do you think Corey's right? Have I convinced you?
I don't think Corey's right. I don't think Kaycee's a player. I just think she fell victim to Nany. If we're going to say that Corey has his jersey retired in the rafters as a player, right? If today's the day Vince Carter retired, right? And his jersey's going to be up in the ACC rafters or Scotiabank Arena, whatever we're calling it now.
SBA.
If that's a thing, you know, Corey's jersey's up there hanging up in the rafters of the challenge. His player, not Corey as you know, being a challenge competitor, but Corey the player. Nany is well on her way to also, whenever she decides to hang him up, she's definitely going to be in the rafters as well. And what I mean by that is Kaycee is just the next victim in a long line of prey that has fallen under the spell of Nany. So
it's true.
I don't think that Kaycee is a player, but I do like your analogy because what it made me think of, we always talk about, you know, we always say shoot or shoot, right? And it's like Allen Iverson shoots to score, like he walks in and gets a bucket. So your analogy made me think of Allen Iverson's out here and he's shooting to get to his 30 points. Kawhi lets the game come to him. They're both going to get to 25 to 30, but just different ways of going about it, right? So I get where you're coming from. I just think that I put more of it under, you know, we don't fully comprehend the aura that surrounds Nany and how difficult it might be to fight off Nany. I use this example all the time about Chris Rock, about you might stop chasing, but when it's chasing you, you can only run so fast away. And that's what I think is happening to Kaycee.
I also think it's truly, like, I truly believe that the environment makes a difference. Because, like, right now, they're only allowed to really talk to, like, 12 people. One of those people is Josh. Another one of those people is D. A third one of those people is Rogan. So you're down to 9. And Bayleigh made it abundantly clear that Kaycee wasn't speaking to her either. So you've got 7 other people that you can talk to. Like it's a short list.
Well played, well played. I have a question for you about the next scene.
Okay.
And I just wonder, because I feel like, okay, so we get Bayleigh saying that she thinks that Kaycee is caving, right? We get a scene with Anissa. I skipped ahead a little, so I don't want to miss out on this because I have a question before. Anissa trying to tell Kaycee to be careful again.
Yeah.
What do you make of this? What do you make of Anissa interjecting herself yet again into the middle of Nany and Casey?
You know, I think it's fair to say that Anissa, like Corey, is an experienced reality TV star.
Okay.
As we always say, the challenge is not Big Brother. It's a little more R-rated.
Yep.
A little more alcohol.
Yep.
A little different vibe.
Yep.
And I think Anissa knows of what she speaks.
Okay. So you're okay with that?
Well, I mean, I'm going to be honest. I've been both Anissa and Kaycee in this conversation in my time.
Okay.
And as I said off the top of this podcast, I choose no sides.
Fair.
I think everyone's right here.
I like that.
I think that I think Anissa's right to say hey, so you might think you might be banking on getting a good edit. There's no such thing as a good edit. Your girlfriend's gonna see what she wants to see, and like it's up to you, like how that's going to go down. And other people were weighing in too, being like, hey, like you might want to get ahead of this, just in case the ball doesn't bounce in your favor. But also, I understand Kaycee being like, no, things are fine. Because, again, Kaycee's trying to convince herself that things are fine.
For sure. No, that's true. That's fair.
So
to me, I just kind of like, yo, Anissa, you've been down this road already. Just let her swerve. She's going to swerve. Let her swerve. You know, there's a famous song that probably wouldn't be as popular if it came out nowadays just because of the culture or the climate that we live in. But there was a song by Grammy Award winners or Oscar Award winners, 3 6 Mafia. Don't save her.
Ooh.
She don't want to be saved. You already tried. You really did.
Yeah.
You tried already. Let her swerve. She's going to swerve. Let her swerve.
But
and,
this time...
on top of that, Kaycee in her confessional says that she thinks that all the people coming up to her, it reeks of jealousy. What? Like, if I'm Anissa at home watching this right now, I'm like, bitch, please. Come on. What? Come on. It's Nany. Nany's been around on the challenge for how long? What are we talking about? You're just a new toy. You're this season's toy. Come on now.
Yeah, I get it. And like I said, I think one of the reasons why, or maybe the only reason why, Anissa took a second crack at this conversation is because this was definitely like a breakfast time, lunchtime conversation, and last time is at the club. I think Anissa was hoping that like Jack Daniels wouldn't be on the other shoulder.
That's fair.
You know what I'm saying?
That's fair. Then we get a conversation that I'm really interested in. Because this is the one that so much shit happens after the fact that I think this conversation kind of gets forgotten. So let's, for this moment, break it down in terms of Kaycee, Bayleigh, and Jenny. And Bayleigh says the same thing almost happened to her and Kaycee on Big Brother. To be honest, right? I don't remember that. I don't remember that being a part of the storyline on Big Brother. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I'm just saying I remember them all being friends. But again, Big Brother is a different show and it's on network TV, CBS. So there's some things that, you know, CBS censors might edit out. But I will say if there was like some quote unquote X-rated type content, that ends up on the feeds and people would know about it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, maybe they were like chilling in bed or whatever, but it never really crossed a line. I'll say that. I don't remember that being a storyline of Big Brother. But anyways.
I was going to ask you specifically that because you're our Big Brother expert. And like, I feel like you would have mentioned that earlier in the season if you knew about it.
But I also like they were friends. I don't remember it being like a thing where it's like, oh, does she like Swaggy or does she like Kaycee? Like that, I don't remember that storyline. But I will also say that Big Brother comes with a higher TSOP value. TSOP coming from our friend David Jacoby.
Yep.
Time spent on phone. Really high value of TSOP. A lot of time spent on phone with Big Brother on in the background. So you're paying attention, but you're really on your phone. A lot of that going on. So I can't really say that they didn't allude to it because I don't remember that. I just don't remember it being a big storyline. But anyways, Bayleigh says if Swaggy wasn't there, her and Kaycee would have been a thing. Kaycee then says Nany is a way better friend than Bayleigh in her confessional. Right? But in the same conversation, Kaycee does acknowledge, oh yeah, you know, it's just flirting and it's not. Kaycee says, I'm not innocent in this. I flirt. You know, I did the same thing with her on Big Brother. That's what Kaycee says here.
Yeah.
Then goes on in her confessional to say, well, Nany is a way better friend to her than Bayleigh is. Just going to let that simmer. And I'll have a lot more to say on that a little later on.
Yeah, I've got a lot of thoughts on this too, but we're seeing the track laid.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Storylines
I did have to give a shout out to Johnny Bananas.
Okay.
Who asked Kaycee, describe vibe out. And as a fellow, because I think he's a year older than you and I, I was like, yes, thank you. What do you mean by vibe out, Kaycee?
But this is what I mean about Johnny Bananas. He's just in the mix. Because, like, is he stirring the pot? Yes. But at the same time, like, there's so many other ways that this could have gone other than what Kaycee actually said. Like, it's really a harmless question by Bananas. Right? Like, he's stirring the pot, but it's not as bad. Like, on the banana scale of shit disturbing, this is low. This is at, like, a 3 out of 10 or something, right? She simply says, sorry, describe what vibe out means. And I had to rewind this a bunch of times, and I even turned on closed captioning to try to figure out exactly what Kaycee said and why everyone went crazy, because I couldn't make it out. Could you? So, because...
Yeah, she said that Nany kissed her goodnight or something.
So what I gathered is she's drunk. You can tell that first off. But I think she says verbatim, she says, I enjoy her company. I snore at night. And Nany kissed me bleep. Right? But I think she meant to say she kicked my bed. I think what she was trying to say was, I snore at night and Nany kicks my bed. But either a Freudian slip, she says, I snore and Nany kiss me bleep. And then corrects herself saying, kicked my bleeping bed. That's what I got.
Okay.
But at best, it's a Freudian slip where she says, she kissed my feet, kicked my bed. Which, I mean... I can understand why the bench reacts occurred the way it did.
For sure. I mean, they did when Nany and Kaycee earlier on were having their like little drunken, sexually tense moment. They did acknowledge to each other that they had kissed.
Yeah.
Right? Like they'd had that one moment of acknowledgement. But anyway, let's move on to the daily challenge. Blocked in. Which I was looking for
hold
a
on.
Hold on.
Do you accept Kaycee's deflection here of what vibing out means?
No. Like there's definitely sexual tension, and like I just said, they had kissed.
Okay.
Like she flubbed in that moment. But like when it's just the two of them talking, they spoke about how they kissed, in their words, a lot.
And I loved the bench reacts. Loved it.
Yeah, the bench reacts was hilarious. It was perfect.
So yes, sorry. Let's get to the challenge. Blocked in.
Yeah, blocked in, and I was looking for a block Quebecois joke, but I got nothing.
Okay.
Aside from that party itself.
Oh.
Also, there it is. See how I set that up? So this blocked in is there's a red car, which was it a Mercedes, it looked like? And then they had all these black cars, which were like, I don't know, shitty like Yugos or whatever. And they had to, it was a puzzle. They had to move them around, 2 teams, and whoever got the red car out the fastest won. And this is actually a game that you can get on your phone. Like there's an app that simulates this exact thing of trying to get a car out of a parking spot. But anyway, I think it's called Blocked In. The first team is Anissa, Jenny, Nany, Bananas, Rogan, Josh, and Corey. And Sheldon, what was their strategy here? Who was the mastermind that they decided to put in charge of this operation?
Of course, Rogan.
When you have a team that has Anissa on it, who's like renowned for being really good at puzzles, they chose Rogan. Like Rogan is clearly should just be in charge of pushing.
I mean,
like
yeah, I don't.
That's
his reasoning too is because he's good at Tetris,
which this game is not like Tetris.
I don't know. That's what the man said. I was just going by what he said, and I mean Jenny seemed to agree, and. This, I don't know if this is not my line of the episode, but it was definitely the one where I went, hold on, what? Jenny says, Rogan is a puzzle master because too many cocks spoil the broth. I've never heard that saying before.
I don't think it's a saying. I don't.
All right, sure.
And then like on top of that, I saw a lot of people tweeting this, But like Rogan was clearly getting flustered.
Oh, very quickly.
And yet everyone was shushing
Jenny.
among other people.
Jenny and Anissa.
And Anissa.
Yeah.
And like people were tweeting this last night. But like listen to the women.
Yeah.
And like
it was so
damn
bad.
right.
It's such a microcosm of society. Like, it was so funny to watch because, like, even when they do start to figure it out and Bananas is like, we just got to move that car back. And Jenny's like, I said that like 5 minutes ago. Right? Like, I almost wanted them to lose. Like, when they announced they announced that it was only between 13 seconds. I was like, please let them lose. Just because if they had listened to Jenny or Anissa, they would have won. It was just hilarious how it all played out because it seemed like at one point Jenny even says, if we just do this, 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 and this. And Bananas' response was like, no, that can't be it. There's no way it would be that easy. Like, they didn't even try it. His response was, there's no way that they would make it that easy, that it's just 3 simple moves. It's like, and I don't know if he's right or wrong, but it just seemed like a weird way to just automatically shoot down her point. And you know what, John? I just want to re-emphasize the point here that the challenge just showed us a great example that as men sometimes we just need to shut up and listen to women.
You're right. It was so obvious. And like I think viewers saw it. I know the female competitors saw it. Then we had the set.
It was just so funny. It was so funny.
And like it's incredible that everyone knows that Rogan is not the brightest. And yet, by virtue of the fact that he is a straight white male, he was put in charge for some reason.
I don't know. Are you dissing his Tetris skills?
Yes.
Are you saying Rogan can't have good Tetris skills? I'm joking. I can't even say that with a straight face. It's Rogan. Of all people, it's Rogan. And then the fact that it was doubled down by telling everyone else to be quiet, but then Bananas was allowed to say his piece. It was like,
well, he's also a straight white male, right? So
this is correct. But yeah, team two. The team two go a lot more smoothly. And one part we kind of glazed over was yet again when they showed the two teams whose name was strategically placed last.
I noted that down. D, bottom right hand corner. Also, I noticed something. You probably noticed this because you have a better eye, but so many shots that had clearly once been like a broad group shot were clearly zoomed in. Like a few times I'm like, this is not like the best crop job. But it's like, I wonder who they're trying to work around. Like, I wonder why they're making this editorial decision.
Oh, yes.
So the second group, who they have? There's Fessy.
In the second group, because I wrote down the groups, and now as I scroll back up in my notes, team 2 was Kyle, Nelson, Melissa, Bayleigh, Fessy, Kaycee, and D.
I like what Kyle had to say, where he's like, it's a good thing that there's a lot of pushing here, because like me and Fessy, like, we'll be good at pushing. He's like, unfortunately, there's also a puzzle element, which we won't be good at.
Yes. And it's funny. One thing you can say about Kyle is he knows his role. He has a strong understanding of his strengths and weaknesses. And, you know, him and Nelson and Fessy, they sat back. And you know what? In a complete flip side of what we watched with the team 1, Bayleigh took charge, and the guys just kind of let her cook, right? Bayleigh seemed to know what she was doing. She was directing traffic, and the edit made it seem anyways that like that team was a lot quicker. But as we know,
that was my impression.
Yeah, but as we know, hey, Magic TV, I can edit a segment to make anything look. Hey, it looks like John's in the Rogers Center right now. If you're watching the video, so the magic of editing. Oh man, seeing a packed stadium. Wow.
Giving you anxiety?
I can't believe I was going to say something and I'm not going to engage in that conversation because of political connects. But I think you know where I was going to go with that.
I do.
And I'm just going to move on. But Bayleigh took charge, right?
Don't threaten your bag there, man.
No. Never mind. I'm gonna keep going. Bayleigh, great job by Bayleigh, leading the charge. But, yeah, the winner was Team 1, and I was actually stunned. I also noticed.
I was honestly stunned too. I thought it was gonna be Team 2, like in a walk.
Did you notice Josh channeling his inner Bear, who channeled his inner Triple H and Shawn Michaels with the DX celebration? That was a bit much, but it's Josh, so...
Classic Josh.
Classic Josh. So we knew right away that Nany was going to put herself in, right? Mm-hmm. Kaycee says she knows that she's a deciding vote. And I love how... I know there's different ways that people saw this episode. You know, either there's way too much drama, way too much tea, we might say, and not enough like actual challenge, you know, either competition or gameplay or strategy. But to me, I was reading through the tea and through the drama right to the actual challenge, just normal tete-a-tete, let's say. So in this scene where we get Nany and Casey, and once Kaycee said, "Oh, I think I'm the deciding vote," I started to really think of this whole narrative in a completely different way, right? So in this concept, as we're viewing it, Nany and Kaycee are basically telling us that Kaycee's going to just vote to put Melissa in because that's who Nany wants to go against. Nany's going to put herself in, and Kaycee knows that she's a deciding vote, so she's going to vote in Melissa because that's who Nany would rather go against. So my first question to you, John, is why is Melissa and Bayleigh, okay, if that's a decision to be made, why is that an issue? Like, what would the deal be with her and Melissa? Is it correct? Nany's thinking, forget about what the outcome was, but Nany's thinking going in that she would rather face Melissa than Bayleigh?
They've sort of hinted that, and she even hinted at it, joked about it herself. I gather that, like, a big thing that informs, like, who's going to compete against who is they see each other working out every day.
Okay.
Right? So, like, you see, if you're like Kyle and you see Fessy, like, doing the big bench presses, moving the big sleds, you don't want that smoke.
Correct.
And Melissa joked, and it's sort of been implied, that Melissa, and to a lesser extent Nany, don't work out.
Okay.
Whereas Bayleigh works out.
Okay.
And also, I mean, Bayleigh just sort of showed her stuff in terms of her ability in a puzzle. Mm-hmm. So I can see that, like, going in blind, not knowing what the elimination challenge might be, on paper you're like, okay, Melissa has not worked out. Melissa herself on Twitter, I'm not saying this to, like, make fun of her or anything, but Melissa has pointed out on Twitter that she's clearly pregnant at this point. Like, there's a little bit more of her than she's used to, and she was not in the best shape of her life, which, again, totally natural and reasonable. She didn't know she was pregnant, but she can see that she's not in shape, that her energy levels weren't there.
Yeah.
Her body's going through changes. So I think just, like, Bayleigh and Melissa are probably the two weakest competitors left for Nany at this point, but also on paper, if you don't know what the elimination challenge might be, Bayleigh looks like a tougher matchup. Okay,
so I on paper might agree with that, but I kind of just thought it was messed up because I thought it was kind of disrespecting Melissa, because I know Melissa hasn't been on the challenge that much. This is what, her third season, maybe? Second season?
Third, because she, like, instantly got booted off. Season.
Yes. Okay. So it's funny that's okay. Because what I was going to say is the one thing we do know about Melissa is she's feisty. And so...
Like, she's gone into it with Cam and with...
Kayla,
but there was someone else where, like, in an elimination... Sylvia. With Sylvia, they had that
Yes.
knockdown drag
Yeah,
out
yeah, yeah,
competition
yeah.
that lasted for like
Yeah.
an hour.
Yeah. So my thinking, even before knowing what the challenge was, I was like, Melissa is a better version of Nany. Meaning,
Yeah.
she comes into the house, both very attractive young women, right? They both come in the house. They both provide equal, if not better amounts of drama, right? You don't want to mess with them. They'll tell you about yourself. They'll argue with you. But then also we've seen the reason I give Melissa the edge is because we've seen that Melissa wants to smoke. So if I'm Nany, I wouldn't have been that quick to be like, oh, I'd rather go in versus Melissa than Bayleigh. Right? I wouldn't have been that quick to come to that conclusion, which leads me to what I was saying about this whole narrative of, you know, me looking at this from the gameplay standpoint. I know it was a love connection episode, but to me, Kaycee's mess up was in the gameplay, because here's the thing. Bananas, I think, alluded to this last week when he was talking about Josh, and when Josh said, oh, Fessy didn't want to throw me in, and Banana said if you guys were really boys, he'd put you both in, so that guarantees that one of his boys is coming back with a skull. And I'll use that same analogy here, because if Kaycee was honest and she's really friends with both Bayleigh and Nany, wouldn't you rather at least one of your friends come back with a skull, other than what eventually ended up happening, which obviously we'll talk about more in depth. But before we even get there, you're completely eliminating the fact that Melissa could win. Right?
Yeah.
Like, it didn't even seem like that was something that was in her mind. And to me, that's completely disrespectful and a dumb ass plan. Like, it's completely on the table that you're sending home Nany, and now you're ruining your relationship with Bayleigh. For what? That was the part I didn't understand. And that's where I think I looked at this whole thing through the lens of the gameplay. And that's where I really think Kaycee fucked up, above ruining relationships.
There's a few other things that she could have done better. She was critical of Bayleigh and Swaggy for hiving themselves off. That, like, they didn't really speak with anyone throughout. I don't know that that's true. Like, they were speaking with Wes. He got eliminated.
And
I sort of see her point.
No, but also you got to remember,
it's 100%.
But also their crew got eliminated. So Wes was gone, but also remember Jay was part of their crew. He's gone, and clearly there's still some ties because Fessy still kept his vote for Bayleigh. So how much did they really isolate themselves from the house compared to they might have just been on the wrong side of the house, for lack of a better term? Which I don't even know if there are sides on this season. Like, I think this season is so different in how it played out.
I also, though, like, there's no reason, like, we've seen that Kaycee, aside from Nany, kept to herself generally.
For sure.
Throughout the season. So, like,
totally.
She's saying that, like, Bayleigh and Swaggy hive themselves off. Why couldn't Kaycee, earlier on in the season, pull them aside at some point and be like, hey, guys, like, I feel like we're not talking. What's going on?
So here's the thing.
Like, that's something that could have been broached 2-3 weeks ago.
I think... And this is what dawned on me from that first scene with Kaycee, Bayleigh, and Jenny, was I think that Kaycee probably feels some way from Big Brother because she was into Bayleigh, but Bayleigh and Swaggy obviously became a thing. And then now when you fast forward, you have Bayleigh kind of feeling a certain way because now that Swaggy's gone, now that she's trying to think like, oh, now maybe me and Kaycee can be friends again, or at least like have some form of relationship together instead of the zero that they came on the show with. And there's nothing. So I think there's like hate on both sides. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And when I say hate, I mean the, like, you know, the cool kids way of hate, not actual hate, right? Yeah. So that's what I found kind of weird, because even in the next scene where Kaycee goes to try to talk to Bayleigh and Bayleigh's in bed, and I love how Bayleigh has gone about this in terms of dealing with her emotions. Because right away when Kaycee comes over to her and tries to talk, Bayleigh says, don't even bother. I already know what you're going to say. I get it. You're going to pick Melissa because Nany wants you to. She tries to dead the conversation. She tried to not have the conversation. And instead, Kaycee continues to keep it going. And, you know, I love the point she makes. Instead of this being about picking between me and Nany, it isn't. It's you picking between me and Melissa. You're picking Melissa. Nany wants you to face Melissa. She just made the whole point, right? And that's exactly what I was saying. You're choosing who you're giving the opportunity to get a skull. Instead of thinking, I could give both my friends an opportunity to get a skull, so at least one of my friends get one, you put into the Matrix an opportunity for neither of your friends to get a skull.
Yeah. I also, at first in this scene where Kaycee was approaching Bayleigh, I'm like, well, better late than never. And then I got a little annoyed with Bayleigh, where it's like, man, Bayleigh, like, sit up in bed, like, have this conversation. Even after she tried to kill the conversation, it continued on. I was like, man, Bayleigh, like, you gotta control your energy. I know you're upset, but like, you gotta have this conversation. But she made a fair point at the end of it, where she basically was like, you brought this to me at like the worst time. Like, I'm in bed, I've got my bonnet on, like, I don't want this screen time right now, which is a fair point.
And you know what?
And they have 24/7 together. Like, this could have been broached any other time of day.
All I'm going to say is a sister's hair is a very big deal. And if a sister's hair, she's very careful about how she wants to be on camera. And I'm not mad at that. That goes for a lot of people, right? That's a normal thing in reality TV. If someone doesn't have their makeup on, someone doesn't have their right fit on, they don't want to be a part of this scene. And she completely was eliminating herself from the drama, trying to, and she kept going at her. She talked to her calmly in the beginning and then told her, like, listen, I'm not trying to have this conversation with you right now. And you keep trying to have it. And I was strongly on Team Bayleigh. So Kaycee is making it about her and Swaggy, and I don't even think it has anything to do with that. Bayleigh is saying she doesn't want to talk about it. And then Melissa, they keep saying Melissa has the numbers in the house. Okay? Which doesn't make sense. Again, Kaycee is making no sense. Melissa might have the numbers in the entire house, but tell me how much the numbers in the entire house matter at all right now. It was a literal 3-3 tie. Yeah. When it came to Kaycee. So
you're
the swing vote. How in one breath can she be the swing vote and then say Melissa has all the numbers in the house? That doesn't make sense.
The other thing that I wanted to point out in terms of poor gameplay, and it's such a like small thing, but I do think it makes a difference, is we've seen some of the more veteran people really take control of the voting. And both Bayleigh and Kaycee fucked up the voting scene. Because first of all, I agree with what some of the people in the house said.
Okay.
That I can't believe it. Nelson was right. That Bayleigh should have brought a different energy, should have advocated for herself better.
I disagree.
But also, Kaycee should have... excuse me. Kaycee should have voted first. Just get ahead of it. Instead of making it like the dramatic scene.
Nah, I bet you as a producer, they were there making the order. Like, we don't know that. We wouldn't see that.
We don't know that.
But
that's true.
If I'm there and I'm running the scene, the fact that Kaycee clearly already had the conversation, the producers know how the votes are going to break down. So then you would set
everyone in the house knew.
Yeah, so you would set up so that Kaycee goes last. And even if they tried to make it go the other way, I'm stopping the scene and making it go the other way so that Kaycee's last.
Why did you think that Bayleigh brought the right energy to the voting ceremony?
Because as Bayleigh points out later on in the episode, right, she was hurt personally. And I think what happens a lot on reality TV is that we forget that these are real people with real feelings and real emotions. So you give up some of that to go on reality TV, but for everybody there's going to be a line where shit becomes real. And you could tell that Bayleigh, it came off that, you know, this was a real thing for her. Like, she was really actually personally hurt by Kaycee or someone who you think you're close with, and then you find out you're really not that close with them at all, and she was actually hurt by that. So I think in her head, she was so worried about how she was going to be portrayed. And I give her a lot of credit, because if you know yourself, and you know, and I think we all know people like this, it's 0 or 10, as she said, right? Tears or yells or screams. Tears or screams, I think was a quote. And if you know yourself and you know that you don't want to put out that energy where you're screaming during the nominations, especially when you realize, well, it's not like I'm going to change her mind.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, there's no other like, what's the other outcome? What's going to change her mind? What's going to change any of the other votes' mind? So I enjoyed the fact that she said, you know what? I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to take it. Let's just get this over with. I respect that. She tried to hold it in and take the high road and be like, you're fucking me over right now, and I don't even want to add more narrative to this and make myself look like an ass on TV yelling and screaming at you because you don't deserve my energy on that. I respected that. I liked that. And it lasted for a bit.
Yeah. Right. And this takes us to the bar scene, Nebe, or whatever it's called.
Okay.
Which I'm still amazed that they're allowed back after Josh got up on the bar and was screaming at people. But here we are. And Melissa toasts everyone that voted for her, which is a bold move.
Yep.
And Kaycee is giving Nany like a little flirtatious pep talk. And then just like down the bar, Johnny Bananas and Jenny are talking to Bayleigh, and Johnny's basically like, hey, what are you feeling right now? Like, I think his exact words are, what's going on in your head right now? Because I don't understand.
Yeah.
And this is where we really got the background on her relationship with Kaycee, where she was under the impression that they were maybe more than just friends, but that like Swaggy sort of like, she was sort of in her mind a little torn between Kaycee and Swaggy, but Swaggy put his foot down and like that's what she went for.
Okay.
But that she felt like Nany was just like the newer, better version of her, that it was the end of her friendship with Kaycee. And Johnny, I think, even says like, I had no idea about all this history. Like I had no idea. And Jenny also seemed to take it all in and be taken aback.
And you got to think about it from Johnny's perspective. He's seen, like, what I described about Nany, Johnny has seen that, right? So he also understands it from that angle in terms of what's going on. So to him, to hear that it's a surprise that, oh, Bayleigh and Kaycee had a little bit of a history, at least they had a relationship at some point. Again, I know it turns into an argument later on in the episode, but Kaycee acknowledged it herself in the same episode, right?
Yeah. That
they flirted and they had a little bit of a thing, and everything that Bayleigh said, she said in front of Kaycee and Jenny.
Yeah.
Right? And Jenny is sitting there with Banana, so obviously she knows that, right? So I found that super interesting. But yeah, I love the breakdown that Bayleigh gave as well, right? Just in terms of, you know, there's, as I mentioned, there's no in between. It's 0 or 10, and that's why she was kind of calm about it. And to me, that just kind of summed up why I was on Team Bayleigh, right? And as you mentioned, it seemed like Jenny was also on Team Bayleigh. Banana seemed to have an understanding, but also the nice thing to say about Nelson seemed to be on Team Bayleigh. No?
Nelson, this is, I think we're unanimous here. This is our say something nice about Nelson.
Yeah.
I thought he was very nice to Bayleigh throughout this episode. Both when he came back to the tribunal room and was like, she didn't defend herself at all. He's like, she just pouted.
Yeah.
And he's like, I wish she had spoken up more. And also then when he comforted her. And I want to point out that like it was the same setting as when Kaycee first approached Bayleigh. Bayleigh's in bed.
Yeah.
Under her sheets, clearly not wanting to talk. And the way that Kaycee and Nelson approached those conversations, very different. Because Kaycee was going to basically ask Bayleigh's permission to fuck her over.
Yeah.
Whereas Nelson basically said, like, listen, we're competitors, but, like, I care about you as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And Kyle was sort of in there, was around too.
Yeah.
It was mainly Nelson doing the talking. But said, like, you know, we didn't know about all this history. We know it's hard that Swaggy's gone. Like, if you want to talk about that. And he made the fair point, like, it's not good for you to, like, hold it all in.
It's true. If you want to talk, we're here. It was a good move by Nelson.
And, like, just a very, like, remaining human. And for all my criticism of Nelson, and there's literal hours of me criticizing Nelson, I do think that he's an emotional and sensitive person. Mm-hmm. And, like, that's his strength and his weakness.
Fair.
We saw it the way he spoke with Corey last week.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen it a few other times. He is a very, like, empathetic person. He doesn't have a good handle on his own feelings, and I don't think he explores his own feelings well enough. But, like, this is where I like Nelson.
No, I agree.
Like, this scene is arguably the most I have ever liked Nelson.
Yeah, no.
Where he kept it very real and, like, was kind, and also was good enough to say to Bayleigh, like, all right, I'm going to leave you now, but, like, I just wanted you to know that, like, if you ever want to talk, like, for real, let me know.
Yeah, and I think, too, maybe there's an influence from Corey and Fessy that's happening to Nelson, maybe. Because even one thing I found very interesting, we got to remember, and I can't emphasize this enough, Fessy said when they were making the votes, he said, hey, we came in and we kind of said, you know, our Big Brother crew, I'm going to stick to that. That's what I said from the beginning. I'm going to stick to that. And he voted for Bayleigh, right? Yeah. So it just showed to me kind of, you know, there are another side to this, and people could see when it became real. And you see people who have something real to stand on and people who don't. Because to me, the other part of this, actually, I'll save that for the end. But Nelson being a nice guy, yeah. Bayleigh was losing it. She's crying. The bar scene was weird, but again, I also think, I can't help but imagine D's role in this. I bet you there was so much of, like, Mean Girl, D, like, oh, look at Bayleigh's all crying now. Like, I bet you there's so much of that. But it was better to kind of see this side of the challenge where it was people being nice, trying to comfort her and console her while she was crying. Because
and let's not forget, sorry to cut you off, but let's not forget, Kyle is best friends with Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
But he's in there, too, being nice and, I think, comforting as best he can to Bayleigh. Like, Nelson certainly took the lead, but, like, there's also a clip where Kyle, like, passed her in the hall. And
like, he asked her if she was okay.
Hey, are you okay? Yeah.
Totally.
Like, and, like, she's not mad at Kyle. Like, Kyle has been clear about where his allegiances lie.
For sure.
He's not being two-faced.
The other thing, though, too, is the flip side of all that, of the real conversation, is the fact that Kaycee at the bar is gassing up Nany. Kaycee is telling Nany, like, oh, you know, like, I think everyone should be afraid of you. I think everyone's afraid of you, and you're one of the best players here. And it's like, none of that is true. That is where I also was like, okay, she's definitely mesmerized by Nany's right now, because nobody's afraid to go against Nany. Nobody.
No.
Right?
No, so that's not true.
It was so interesting to think of it that way. So Bayleigh, the interesting part, though, that I found kind of interesting was she was saying how she's going to mess with Kaycee's relationship and air out all her dirty laundry about what's been going on in the house.
She tweeted today that she did not do that.
Okay.
She said that when she got back home and she was with Swaggy, that she decided to mind her own business. And that discretion would be the better part of valor.
I give her credit for that.
Yeah,
I would say, though, in the moment, a reminder I give to everybody. I say this all the time, and maybe this comes with old age and maturity. But I always try to remind people, when you're in an argument with someone, you do not get to decide how they will react. You just don't. So do I think Bayleigh would be taking it really far or taking it next level to do that because she's in an argument with Kaycee? Yeah, that's taking a little far. But if you're Kaycee, you don't get to decide that because it's not up to you. Once you engage in this beef or argument, you don't know what that next person is going to do because you're in an argument. You're mad at each other. And so the next goal is to inflict some form of emotional harm on the other person. And you don't get to decide what the rules and parameters are. You might for yourself and what you will do, but you don't get to decide what the other person does. So you probably shouldn't get into the argument in the first place.
No. Let's talk about the argument and how it kicked off. So the tribunal has no choice but to nominate Bayleigh. Was it D and...
Is Bayleigh, D, and Kaycee.
Yeah, they have no choice.
Yeah.
The only conversation that's really worth having is with Bayleigh.
Yeah.
Right?
So Bayleigh explains. Bayleigh, to me, the reason why I'm Team Bayleigh firmly here is because she came in and she was just speaking facts. She said that her and Kaycee were like Nani and Casey. They had a deal at the very start of this. When they came into the house, or even before they entered the house, they talked to each other and they had a deal that they were going to try to do as much for each other as possible. And then because of Nani, she broke it. And this is where I don't like. This is Nani. Nani's a vet, but Nani plays herself a little bit here because she says, "Don't put that on me. It's not on me." And Bayleigh says, "What do you mean it's not on you? The only reason she's voting for Melissa is because you want her to vote for Melissa."
Yeah.
Which again, Bayleigh, straight facts. But a double down, what is Nani talking about? Why not just own it?
Yeah. Like, and this is one of Nani's weak points, is that she never handles criticism well.
True.
And, like, technically, this isn't even criticism. This is just Bayleigh stating a fact. She's doing it for you. And maybe, I doubt this, maybe this is news to Nani. And Nani starts getting into splitting hairs about, like, I didn't ask her to. I just told her to do what she felt was more comfortable. But, like...
You asked her to.
Come on, Nani. And,
right?
like, what is... I found frustrating about both Nani and Kaycee was their inability to just, like... Yes, Bayleigh's taking it personally, but, like, they could have left it at that. Like, they both could have been like, I'm sorry you're taking this personally, but it's just gameplay.
Yeah, and
then left it at that.
I can't emphasize enough, though, how bad gameplay it is, because even if you include the full numbers of the entire house, why does that matter? Because all people are acknowledging right now that this was probably the last female elimination. Right? There's going to be some form of a purge coming up, and then that's how they're going to decide who's going to be in the final and who's not going to be in the final. So then why do the numbers matter? Right? Like, are you voting on who's going to be in the final? No. Are you voting on anything? So her saying that, oh, well, Bayleigh doesn't have the numbers, and so their point was Kaycee was making a strategic move to be on the right side of the numbers with the house. That doesn't hold water to me. That doesn't make sense.
And she has her red skull too. Like, just all I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's good gameplay. I'm just saying that they could own it as gameplay, which is what they claim it was. And I'm not convinced that it wholly was.
I'm just saying,
but we'll get to that.
You know what I mean, though? Nani playing innocent, it's like, it's getting old. It's like, come on, homegirl, I love you. You are a challenge royalty. You're reality TV entertainment at its finest. You are one of the people that make the challenge what it is. But just stand behind it. Own who you are. You're a bad bitch, and every season, multiple people pretty much every season end up falling for you. That's okay. Stand on it. So I was going to say Bayleigh comes in and Bayleigh's not happy. I see D for the first time, and that just made me laugh. But also, Jenny is having a conversation, which we talked about a little bit earlier. She's kind of on her side. And for no reason at all, as you mentioned, they could have just let it slide, right? Mm-hmm. But instead, Nani, as she tells Kaycee, what Bayleigh was saying, Kaycee is like, what? I slept with her? I can't believe she said that. When really, I don't think that's the context that Bayleigh actually said. Like she said, I think the quote was, we slept together, we ate together. Like, I didn't take that as like having sex.
She meant it in context. She meant it as we fell asleep in the same bed together.
Yeah.
She did not mean we had sex.
But Kaycee comes in with the energy as if she's going to confront Bayleigh. And this was the moment that Bayleigh finally had enough. And I was with her 100%. You're only going to poke the bear so many times before the bear reacts. Right? And she was just, finally, she's just like, no. And she's yelling, and Kaycee's getting mad at her for yelling. And it's like, no. You came to me, right? Like, you came to start an argument with me. And now because I'm taking the argument back to you, you're going to tell me to stop yelling? Nah, that's not how it plays. How did you read that scene, man?
Oh, well, I think you're right. It's a lot of pent-up anger. I think it's a lot of frustration. I also felt that Kaycee was gaslighting Bayleigh.
Oh, like she was trying to get her to blow up.
Well, I think she was saying, like, no, what are you talking about? Well, she was saying, what are you talking about? We were just friends.
Yeah.
There was no, like, sexual chemistry. There was no, like, tension. Mm-hmm. Like, we were only just friends, ever friends.
Yeah.
And...
again, in the exact same episode, she's already said otherwise. She said...
and said it to Bayleigh.
Exactly. Right. In this episode, she says to Bayleigh, we flirted. Yeah, I flirted. I did that with her the whole season on Big Brother. She said that in front of Bayleigh and Jenny in the same episode. Yeah. So to now turn around and call her a liar, and, you know, you can't blame Bayleigh for getting mad. And I know she was yelling, but what she was saying, you got to listen to her words. I will not be disrespected. And you're calling me a liar right now. Like, that's what you're doing. And I'm not lying. I don't know. I just found it funny because when you really sum the whole debate up, Kaycee is saying that her and Bayleigh were just friends on Big Brother. But she's also telling us right now that her and Nany are just friends on the challenge. And we're watching what just friends means to Kaycee. So by her definition, isn't she blowing up her own game? I'm just gonna leave that for you guys, for you, John, and the audience to think about that for a second.
That said, as I said, I see both sides to this. Mm-hmm. And the counter arguments, and I agree with everything that you just said, that I've been saying. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I agree with myself. But the counter arguments is there is a witness to both houses. Okay. That's Fessy.
Okay.
And Fessy says he backs up Kaycee in confessional.
He does.
And says, I never had the impression that there was any sexual tension between them.
Okay.
And he said, and like to your point, you watched the season.
I watched the season. I didn't see anything of it, but I will say that because it's CBS, there's a completely different edit. So like them just like sleeping in the bed, that might come up on like the feeds. Do you know what I mean? Like the live feeds that people watch. But at the same time, if like any extracurriculars for real was going to happen, maybe that would be on the feeds, maybe. But it definitely wouldn't make the TV show because Big Brother, there's a lot of things that end up on the cutting room floor. And I don't know if CBS is really ready for, you know, a love triangle involving two women and Swaggy. Like, I don't know how in depth it got. But at the same time, it's different than cameras rolling in the challenge house when they're clearly drunk. That doesn't happen on Big Brother, really. Where like people are like openly drunk. Not so much. But I also will bring up a point that I've said a few times this season, and I feel like it is a big moment to bring this up again. Fessy, as we're seeing, is such a great challenge competitor because he's a physical beast. When I go back to Fessy's season on Big Brother, he also won a lot of challenges. He also had an alliance in which his alliance, led by him, were winning a lot of challenges. But when Fessy says that he was in the house and he didn't notice anything going on between Kaycee and Bayleigh, I have to bring up the fact that Fessy lost because every single week someone from his alliance would win and they didn't figure out who the mole was in his own group that kept flipping the vote so that one of them would be going home each and every week, including Fessy, including Fessy's girl. So I don't know how good of a character witness Fessy is to figuring out the ins and outs in terms of what was going on in the Big Brother house, because he had no idea what was going on in the Big Brother house. I've literally never seen someone win so many HOHs and have his alliance win HOH multiple weeks, and yet have someone from their own side of the house get voted out each and every week. And then they'd huddle up after and be like, what happened? Who voted? Like, who flipped their vote? Who was it? Which one of us was it? Who did it? And he had no idea. So that's all I'll say in terms of Fessy being a character witness.
The other thing about Bayleigh is, and I've been saying this all season, is that I appreciate that she's the sort that goes from 0 to 10 and there's like no in between. Mm-hmm. It would behoove her in real life and on the challenge to figure out how to find that middle ground. Because like totally. You're right, the content of what she has to say, spot on.
Totally.
But as people in the house said, even Melissa said, if she showed like half of this passion in the vote, she would have won the vote. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. But I get it. Nelson also had said like, yeah, why didn't she defend her? Like, she has to figure out how to walk that middle line of being assertive rather than passive or aggressive.
For sure. And
she plans on keeping on doing this, and just in life too. Like, it's no way to live.
And the one side I might agree with you on is maybe one person would have flipped if she had said, "Hey, just think of the person." Maybe she would have lost the vote, but if she at least has spoken up, someone would have seen Kaycee's true colors and been like, "Oh, so Kaycee went back on her word." Right? Mm-hmm. And at least that's might have been the win you get out of that whole nomination ceremony. So that makes sense. Mm-hmm. But
and if you do the math too, so like the other two, so there was Melissa won the vote 4-3, mm-hmm. right?
Yeah.
You're not going to flip Kyle and you're not going to flip D.
No.
So who does that leave for her to try to flip?
Well, Josh, but he's probably not going to flip, right? Who did Josh vote mm-hmm. for? Josh voted for Melissa, right? Josh wasn't going to mm-hmm. flip. And the last person was, who was it on the other side? It was Fessy.
Kaycee.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So
it was tough either way. But
the only person she could talk to reasonably would be Josh.
And can you really?
And I agree with you. I don't think Josh is going to flip, but like maybe you can be like, yo, your best friend, apparently, Fessy.
Can you reasonably talk to Josh?
No.
Is that a thing that happens?
But you can.
I'm joking.
You can try.
I'm joking. So
I'm just saying that, like, I think Bayleigh, I hate to say, like, she needs to learn how to control her emotions, but she has to figure out, like, a way to, like, express her emotions in ways that are more effective.
The other thing I might say,
all the people watching lost the plot because of, like, the fireworks.
So
you know?
the one thing I will say in Bayleigh's defense is, if I'm producing a TV show and I'm editing the TV show, do you know what makes the show?
The highlight reel.
The 0 to 100.
Oh yeah.
Not the in between, right? It's either the tears or the screams. Yeah. Those are the two things that make it into the show. So if you think of it from that context, and we watched her take so much and not react, and then we finally see her do react, I pose the question, well, what else did we miss? Because again, I'm still holding out a fact that I bet you D was in the mix somehow, some way throughout this whole thing. What else did we miss? Because I'd assume there's something else there that we missed that led to her. And even if there's something that we didn't miss, I'm still with her finally blowing up. Because how much more is she going to take? Someone calling her a blatant liar, someone just not owning up to the truth of it all. And plus, the actual level of hurt that someone of you think is a friend, and then you find out, oh, they're just going to play me on national TV? Cool.
I also think that their whole dispute's not black and white. For starters, Bayleigh and Kaycee are both in relationships.
Yeah.
Like, let's say we believe Bayleigh that they did have a romantic history. Like
But I even think it was just flirty. I don't even think it was like, shit went down or is even that serious. I just think that they had a connection that was like more than just, we're cool. And of course it's going to happen. We're watching it happen with her and Nany.
Yeah. My point is just that, like, their reactions were so strong that I think it's more complicated. Like, I think that...
Yeah.
Like, I think that Kaycee, I think a lot of her anger came from, A, being called out. Mm-hmm. Right? Like Nany disliking criticism. Maybe Kaycee's built the same way. Mm-hmm. B, trying to keep things under wraps between her and Nany. Right? Like, she's been trying to tell everyone, no, we're just friends. And here she has someone who she's had as you point out, a friendship with, saying, like, I didn't think we were just friends. And, like, the natural conclusion is, okay, if you and Bayleigh had a similar relationship, and Bayleigh didn't think that you were just friends, and then you have this situation with Nany, who in your own words you're closer with, the natural conclusion is it's definitely not just friends. And, like, we know it wasn't just friends, but, like, she's trying to, like, put the genie back in the bottle. You know what I'm saying?
Well, you know what the best way to do that would have been?
Not do any of this?
To vote for Bayleigh.
Yeah.
Throw them off the scent a little bit. Because the obvious question is, wait a second, why wouldn't you just vote for your friend that you came into the house with? Like, your connection with this new girl is that strong?
Yeah.
So, anyways.
That's always my favorite thing, too, when people are like, oh, I have this really strong connection with this person that I've known for 7 weeks. Like, suddenly, like, new trumps old.
Yeah.
I love it when that happens in relationships.
But yeah, this elimination, what'd you think of the elimination? Melissa versus Nany. Right away when I saw it, I'm like, Nany's losing.
I thought Nany was going to lose, but also I thought this was the worst elimination of the entire season. I did not find it interesting. I hated that, like, the format of the competition.
Yeah.
Basically meant that it was tied until, like, through dumb luck, Melissa fell out of the ring before Nany could grab her skull.
I just think their strategy was bad. Because I think, like, my thought, and especially once Melissa went up one, but even before that, as soon as if I'm able to get you on the ground, can I just grab multiple skulls at the same time? Do I have to grab one skull at a time? I don't think that was part of the rule.
I don't think so either.
Right? And so
I don't know.
Once Melissa went up one, there's no way Nany would win, because what I would do is I'm holding you down, even if you need to get 2 skulls off of me. I need to get 1. So even once you get 1 and you turn to run, I'm just grabbing my last skull, and I'm winning. So I think their strategy was just messed up in terms of how they went about it. And because their strategy was, oh, you got 1? Okay, I got 1. That's kind of how it played out. But also, the fact that Melissa trained in MMA, I thought was really funny. And it made me wonder, like, did Nany know that? Probably not. I would assume. I don't know.
It's not a secret. Like, it came up when she had that big fight with Sylvia.
Oh, yes, it's true. So the whole play by Nani and Casey made no sense, right? Because it's like, she's like, scratch me in the face one more time, Melissa. And Melissa just, like, runs right back at her. I thought that was amazing. So
I can't wait to see how Kaycee does now when she's left in the house with Bayleigh. Another thing that, like, and this is just, like, a pure aesthetic thing, but they both looked so dumb. Like, they both looked like Nany and Melissa, that is. They both looked like kids dressed up as Ghostbusters for Halloween, but their moms started their costumes, like, October 30th. You know what I mean?
No, for sure. No, for sure. It wasn't the best elimination, but it was all right. But I also just think the way that they went about it was different. Like, you could see a scenario where it'd be more like an MMA fight in terms of, like, the low person trying to take someone out, and then you grab the legs, and then you kind of hook on. I thought it would play out something more like that, but it didn't. It was just really weird. But again, I wasn't surprised by the outcome, because this is what Nany always does.
Yeah. as many people pointed out, I have to say, I think this was maybe my least favorite episode of the season.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I get why people would say that. There was a lot of Kaycee and Bayleigh drama.
Well, it was missing a B plot, right? Like there was nothing, there was no B plot. We can imagine what the B plot was. This was definitely the main story, for sure.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree.
But like, that's a lot of, 90 minutes is a lot to focus on. Mm-hmm. And I also find this happens on every season of the challenge. The 2 or 3 episodes leading up to the final are the worst, because it's generally people that are left that get along.
Mm-hmm.
They have enough space in the bunker or the house or whatever the situation is to avoid each other, like if they dislike each other.
Agreed.
And like you get sick of some subplots and there's not enough plot to go around for the full episode, and like especially when you're trying to cut out one of the people.
Yeah.
So like,
no,
listen, again, I give MTV credit for like making the best of a bad situation, but like not my favorite episode. I'm ready for the final to begin, pretty much.
I gotta say, like, I really enjoyed it, and I think I enjoyed it because they did such the little tricks of the trade that they do in terms of like the cutaways when they're showing everyone like running into the room to see the argument, the bench, like those things like entertain me so much. Like when they're showing everyone watching, like that made me laugh. But I agree with you in the sense that there was 1, maybe 2 extra Bayleigh or Kaycee scenes that probably wouldn't have been there if there's another plot going on, right? Like an extra conversation that we didn't really need to see because it was kind of repetitive, right? In terms of Bayleigh telling the story of her and Kaycee's past. But yeah, overall, I enjoyed the episode. I was laughing. As mentioned, Corey made me laugh a bunch of times when he was exposing.
Corey and Kyle really like were breaths of fresh air.
Yeah. Bananas stirring the pot at every turn. Like the whole, what was this question? What does vibing out mean? Like it was just hitting there were enough beats that were hit that I was entertained throughout the whole thing. And also just the narrative, I think maybe I enjoyed it because the whole time I was watching and thinking Kaycee and Nany are doing all this scheming for Nany to lose.
Yeah.
And I was just like in such high anticipation to see how that was going to play out that I was entertained the whole way through. Doing so much scheming and plotting to just take an L. And if you think about it, how many weeks in a row has that happened now? Because it happened to Swaggy, right? Where it was like, yep, you're getting thrown in, you're throwing yourself in, and you're going to lose. And if you keep going, like people who keep volunteering them, oh no, well I guess now it's a little bit different because everybody's volunteering themselves to go in. But the person that ultimately has a decision because they won, let's say, we saw that back-to-back weeks where it's like, nope, I'm taking control, I'm going in, and you get to pick your opponent, and you lose.
And they tried to get out D that way too, right? And it didn't work. Like a lot of the schemes are falling flat.
Yeah.
Stop me if I'm wrong, but I don't think you said what your line of the episode was. What was it?
No, I didn't say what it was because when I read the Jenny line about whatever she was saying about Rogan, I was just so thrown off by that I went the opposite way of line of the episode because it was just like, what are you talking about? But much like I'm going to flip this narrative in terms of picking an MVP of the episode, I'm going with an LVP of the episode, and it's definitely Kaycee. Kaycee had a terrible episode. Like when you really break it down, you plotted and schemed for your girl to go in and lose. You, as mentioned before, instead of guaranteeing that one of your friends would get a skull, you brought up a scenario in which both of your friends didn't get a skull, and your best friend in the house is now sent home. Also, you just messed up your relationship. Like, I don't know how you explain that to a significant other. You can say nothing happened. You can say, oh, we only pecked or something like that, or it was playful or whatever. But I don't know what significant other is going to be okay with that and is letting that fly. I don't know. I just think Kaycee had a really bad episode. And it was shocking for me because I found her pretty boring on Big Brother. And I found her pretty boring on the challenge so far. And it was a very strategic move by her to like not be involved in the drama, but always make sure that she was on the right side of the house. That's how she won Big Brother. In the challenge, she did such a good job of kind of doing the same thing, but because the challenge until now. And so it was like you blew up your game for no reason. You blew up your relationship for no reason. I mean, you better hope you win, because maybe the $1 million will make your significant other, a little less mad at you. Maybe. I don't know. Depends on your relationship. I have no idea. But yeah. You mentioned Bayleigh tweeting. Did Bayleigh tweet anything about talking to Kaycee since or no?
No,
you didn't see anything? Okay.
And Kaycee has not tweeted since May.
I wonder why.
It's a great question.
But
I'm just going to double check to see if Bayleigh has tweeted.
With that said, though, the reason why I went LVP is for the fact that was such a high point of the episode, right? Like it was the majority of the episode was just about those three, and Bayleigh could have been the MVP of the episode, but she still doesn't have a skull. So maybe if I was gonna pick one, and maybe it's who you end up picking, gotta give shouts to DJ Mel. Took care of business.
DJ Mel, Melissa, she's my MVP. Because first of all, most importantly, she got a red skull. That's what it's all about right now. She got in under the wire, still counts.
Red Skull Gang!
Joining the Red Skull. Hopefully she has a similar ceremony with Fessy, Corey, and Nelson. But also, no one's mad at her in all this, nor should they be.
No.
She did not talk any shit about anyone. I mean, in fairness, we don't know if she and Dee got into like Mean Girls territory with Bayleigh or what.
We didn't see it.
But, Bayleigh at no point is angry with her. Nany is not angry with her. Kaycee is not angry with her. She was loyal to the people that she's been loyal with since day one. As Johnny Banana said, you can say a lot about DJ Mel, but you cannot say she's disloyal.
True.
Now she just needs to get her boy Kyle a skull, get Josh out of there, do us all a favor, get rid of Josh, and we're doing okay.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I enjoyed this episode more than you did, which is cool, and that's why we have these conversations,
That's right.
Trying to give different opinions to the masses. But yeah, of course, as always, people let us know what you think. Did you guys enjoy this episode? Let us know.
I will say, doing a quick scan of Bayleigh, she's a heavy retweeter.
Okay.
She retweeted a lot of people. She did retweet one that was like pro Nany.
Okay.
So she's apparently fine with Nany now, or like
maybe
has moved on. Who's to say? It's hard to interpret a retweet like that.
True.
Where can people find you on social media?
You can find me on Twitter at Shell Alexander. Still ducking and dodging Twitter a lot right now because it's a cesspool of just fuckery. I was trying to think of a more PC term, but there's a lot of fuckery right now on Twitter. And to be honest, not really trying to be a part of that life. I don't need that energy right now. Some of the arguments I'm seeing on a daily basis there. But, challenge content is there. Podcast is there. Just click the link. You can find where we post the podcast, and shouts to the people for sure that are listening on iTunes and SoundCloud and the YouTube page, liking and subscribing there. Really appreciate you guys rocking. Tell us what you think of the video. Do you guys like the video content? Just trying to give you guys different options, different ways to consume the goodness that is the You Killed It podcast. But either way, we appreciate you guys. We listen. We do see the comments. Shouts to all the people in the Reddit group. Woo, the Reddit group last week was on fuego fire because I asked the question, did Swaggy have a good rookie season? People were fired up. I don't even know if I've seen that many comments on one of our posts before, but people were fired up. And it was just like going both ways. So
really,
yeah, shouts to the people in the Reddit group. Really appreciate you guys for rocking with us. Same with the Facebook group. Blessings, blessings, blessings to you all.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at jchidleyhill. And until next week, this was You Killed It.
You killed it.